Hey there, how are things going? Welcome to a second installment of the kind of experimental format I'm trying here, kind of solo podcast style, kind of just a vocal journal, since my minutes of focus time throughout the week have an upper limit, and I find it much easier to do this format, and honestly, a lot more, I don't know about a lot more energizing, but we'll discuss that. I have 5 to 6 things I feel like sharing this video, and I got some really encouraging feedback on the last one. I had a handful of people, several people actually tell me that they listened all the way through the end, and not like where I said, please listen. Like, I wasn't like, can you listen to the end and tell me if this is good? I was just like, here's a video, watch it if you're interested. And it was like 45 minutes, and several people did tell me that they made it to the end, which is really, really cool to hear. And that being said, I've learned a lot in the past 2 weeks, or a lot's happened. Not particularly more or less eventful than the normal course of business, but I think if you are a person who is employed and has conversations and interactions and consumes information, at least for me, there's a million ideas whizzing around in my head, and there's rarely an opportunity to sit, how my journal talked about that in the previous video. Not the first person in the world to talk about the benefits of slowing down and thinking, and not going to be the last either. So anyway, just in the past 2 weeks since I recorded the last video, I feel like so many pieces of information and so many ideas and lessons and important reminders have come my way. And so now's another time to sit down and digest them out loud, if that makes any sense metabolically. So I have a little outline on the screen. If you're like, where's he looking at into the distance? It's the screen in the distance. The first one is you don't need more information or inspiration. You need more thinking time. And setting the stage for where I'm at today. So Saturday, March 1st, I played 18 holes of golf this morning with some friends, which was really fun. And that was my only plan for the day. And then nothing else happened. I didn't make any other plans. And so it's kind of just bored at home. And I was like, the previous 2 weeks were like double back-to-back hackathon, meaning I had a new person who joined our team in a sales capacity. He slept on my couch for a week. So I could kind of get to know him better, and we could do some in-person strategizing. That was really fun. And then the following week, I stayed at my business partner's house. There's 3 of us, right? 3 co-founders at the Orbit businesses, and we all stayed in one house for the first time the 3 of us have ever done that. And we did that for a week just to, have the power of proximity and get a lot done. And so that was back-to-back weeks of going all at it. And I finally, came back to my own apartment, cleaned up, did some chores, things like that. But the point is, I didn't have any plans for this evening, and none came together magically. So that's why we're here. Not to say, like, who knows? I don't have a point to make. The first point that I made, and I'm excited, right? And okay, I understand how I was getting here. I was like, should I watch a movie? Should I go out? Should I read a book? And obviously exercise is off the table. I'm like tired from golf, and I don't know if that's obviously, but I'm also quite sunburned. I didn't think reading a book was good. I have this aversion right now to reading books because I just feel so, and not like completely, I'm not like, oh, books are wrong, but for where I'm at in life and for what I want to achieve next, I do feel like the answer is thinking in a quiet room with concentration, without distraction. And, I have the information within me to go where I need to go. I just need to do the work. And so, like, reflection questions, right? I kind of always think about the metaphor of the airplane, right? You're on the airplane. It's not even a metaphor. It's just the example. You're on an airplane, you have no internet, and all you can do is think. And suddenly you have all these brilliant insights. Same thing. You're in the shower. Most people don't take their cell phone in the shower. That's their only 2 minutes a day without the phone. And they have all these downloads, all these insights. And it's like, okay, well, all that's really happening is you finally given yourself the space to think and have big ideas. And so the 2 questions that I think are all I need to spend time thinking about to, let's say, take the business significantly further, are what mistakes do I think we're making, right? What are the parts of the business that give me anxiety right now? Where do I get worried on sales, on fulfillment, on, other things, financials? Like, where do I feel like we're spending money irresponsibly? What are some gaps in our service that I think would really take it to the next level and, make it from a great value proposition to an undeniably incredible best in, all of those things. I can list out all these paper cuts that I'm aware of, because there's always paper cuts, but listing out those anxieties and just cleaning up those mistakes. It's not like I didn't need a business book to tell me, like, go catalog the things that are giving you anxiety and fix them, because, like, obviously you'll be more robust. And then the other one is what advice, and I think, an exception to this is I have spent a lot of time accumulating information. Had I never read a business book, I'd probably be very well served by reading a business book, but I've like read many several times. And it's now like, okay, what advice have I been given that I know to be true, that I just feel like is axiomatic? Like everyone I admire in the world of business, everyone further ahead of me shares the same advice. What advice have I been given that I know to be true that I'm ignoring at my own peril? Where am I being either like wishfully ignorant, thinking, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me because I'm, me and I'm special. It's like, okay, that's red flag number one. Or where am I thinking like, oh, well, this particular circumstance doesn't quite apply to like this, rule that everyone says. And obviously there's a saying from Naval, which is all advice cancels to zero, right? You can find people who said the secret to their success was being a workaholic with no personal life, and that's why they were able to just get more done than other people. And there's people who are like, the only reason I'm successful is because I have a personal life, and that's the reason I was able to show up to work with a good attitude and be happy, and only had good ideas when I'm happy. And there's, a tremendously, and I use that word, I think, in my previous video a lot, tremendously. There's a tremendously diverse landscape of potential avenues to getting things done and finding success. And there's different industries at different points in time where it's like, if you launched Google at the year Google was launched, I don't think the market really cared what mood you were in, what you built Google. It's just what the world needed at the time, right? Present day would be like, if you built ChatGPT and you're the first person to do that, you're going to get 1 billion users because you're the guy who taught rocks how to talk. And that's a big deal. But in our landscape of like, where, the size of the ship, right? Meaning like based on how big of a ship it is, you have a bigger impact on the direction of the ship just by like having different ideas. And so for me, the thinking clear thoughts, I feel like at this juncture right now, where it's not just like pounding more rote effort, it's just like actually making good decisions and thinking strategically. It's really just about quiet time in a room, not like, oh, let me go reread this book. And sometimes you do get a good idea. Like rereading books is almost an exception because that's just an exercise of retrieving the information that already kind of built the foundation and enforcing it at a deeper level. But I think that's for the most part all I really need to say about this. I chose on this evening not to, just read another book because, oh, I need more ideas. It's like, I really don't. There are still a handful of things that I've been told that I am ignoring. And some of it's like, I know that's true. I will get to that. I can't solve every problem at once, and I'm solving them in a sequenced order. But until I've made it through that whole list, like, there's not much to be said of like, oh, I need to hear something I've never been heard before, the secret to scaling to 10x. It's like, no, the secret is just like, that thing that like, you need to be doing. And this is where I think I spoke about Dan Martell last time. He's someone I really admire holistically, business, etc. And he always says, the reward you're looking for lies in the work that you've been avoiding. So you kind of know in your heart of hearts, like, I got to fix this. I got to fix this. I got to fix this. And it's having that honest conversation with yourself, that quiet mind, that clarity of thought to just lay it out and then actually doing it, right, is the other battle. And where that happens, and that's the whole question of like identity. It's like, why are you self-sabotaging that future self? Because I think there's sometimes a resistance to like, if you do that work, like what if it happens and like your life changes? And sometimes we have this resistance to becoming someone else. And so I think sometimes that's why we avoid what feels like the most important thing. Because I don't know if it's an imposter syndrome, but it has a shift in identity to do those types of things. So anyway, that's a number of thoughts to reflect on. Number 2 is the idea of slow dopamine. And it wasn't like a video edit transition. I just like abruptly stopped myself and said, number 2 is slow dopamine. So I don't have the exact date. I'm sure I could pull it up from this calendar, but within the past 2 to 3 weeks, I interviewed Lewis Nichols. He was my very first other Lewis on the podcast. Took 250 some odd episodes to finally say, you know what? I don't have to be the only Lewis that I interview. There's enough world for both of us. And he's the founder of a company called Sparkloop. If you're not familiar with Sparkloop, what Sparkloop does is, and I'm just going to quickly make sure this recording is still going nicely. Yeah, it's going great. Okay. And what Sparkloop does is it's newsletter software. It's software that helps people with newsletters make money by referring their subscribers to other newsletters. Originally, Sparkloop came about as referral software, which is kind of what I just said, but like referral program software. So like back in the, let's say 2020 years for the Morning Brew, there's this thing at the bottom that was like, recommend this newsletter to 5 friends and win a sticker, 10 friends and win a hat, 30 friends, will fly you out to New York City and give you a high five, and 100 friends will buy you, I don't even know. And so that was a thing. People still do that present day. That's still part of Sparkloop. But now what's really popular, and they call this like co-registration, is you sign up for a newsletter, and then the second after you sign up, it says, well, if you like Lewis's newsletter, you might also like his friend Jackson's newsletter or his friend Joe's newsletter. And maybe I would get anywhere from 50 cents to $4, or maybe you like AI tool reports or the AI report because you like my newsletter, you like technology. Anyway, I'm over explaining a simple idea, and it's not terribly important. Point is, Spark Loop's actually very well known in the newsletter space because it's a great tool and a lot of people use it. And I interviewed the founder of it. And when I say that, was just exposition for the story. And we talked about different ways that he's seen newsletters go from 0 to 10,000 subscribers. And I think I introduced the name of this bullet is the idea of slow dopamine. But the idea of slow dopamine is not to romanticize the past, but it's kind of like if there's a spectrum of certain activities. And I've seen, again, I'm not the first person to reflect on these ideas, nor does it matter if I am, right? For my own integration of them, it's like other people have lifted weights. That doesn't mean I've gained any strength. Right? I have to go through the exercise of doing the exercises myself to accumulate the knowledge and information. There's like a spectrum of, reading books versus reading tweets. First of all, it's like how much effort was put into the creation of the thing, and also how much effort on your part goes into the consumption of the thing, right? It's like playing 18 holes of golf versus going out to Topgolf, right? It's like a cheapened version of the experience. It's almost to some extent like going to a restaurant and just like having this like a buffet where you don't have to do anything versus, going to the store and shopping vegetables and preparing a meal for yourself. It's like there's depth and richness in certain activities. Like if you have a table in your home, this is like, a furnished apartment that I rented, and it's like some cheap IKEA table versus like imagine like the pride I would have of ownership in a table where it's like I chopped down the tree, I carved it myself, and especially like imagine if I had like fairly limited tools. And so there's not, you can take this to the nth degree, baking your own, like growing your own, I don't know, like harvesting a bacteria off your nose and using that to start a sourdough culture. And that's the only way you eat bread. Like, I don't think that's the answer here. But the world that we live in has become so linear and so like smoothed on a curve of like everything. And like these ideas are kind of overlapping. But the idea of slow dopamine is one of just like, do the thing that requires effort. And because it's the thing that is like rich and fulfilling. And then the other aspect of, and that's like, right, having roots versus just the frivolity, is that even a word, of travel. And that's something obviously I need to work on for those of you who know me personally. What Lewis talked about in the podcast, not me, Lewis Nichols from Spark Loop, was, and it's not even published yet, neither is this, to be fair. I think this will be published first, is everyone, myself included, where you can just launch a newsletter. You can just start a YouTube channel. There's no barriers to entry anymore to doing anything. And so many people like start a newsletter with 1 subscriber or start a YouTube channel with 0 subscribers. When you think about, the permission economy of the past of to get your videos broadcast, you had to like, I forget who I was talking to. I was talking to Richard. Richard is the salesperson who slept on my couch for the week, and he's a good dude. And Richard was saying, how with studio time, like to go record a song, do you know how like expensive it is to rent out I mean, I know it's expensive to rent out a podcast studio, and like you don't even need like, it's like much less complicated. And this is also present day. So like 20 years ago to rent out a music studio and to like give the time to do the thing with all the equipment and the people managing the equipment, it's like you got to be very confident that what you were doing, like you weren't just going to go there and freestyle a song, and you weren't just going to like write a song the next day, write a song one night, practice it once, and then go record it and publish it. And I know there's kind of like an ultimate irony here of this media, and I'm not saying like what's better or worse, but like this is worth reflecting on. And like I think there's weight on the spectrum in terms of like the wisdom that's lost from like the previous activity. It's kind of like the same thing of like independent journalism versus traditional journalism. It's like, in theory, the traditional media has a team of like 8 people reviewing what gets approved. So it's like there's more rigor in the process versus just an independent journalist just like whipping something out. And I'm going to make the point about newsletters, and I've been pontificating like the broader philosophical implications about it. But what Lewis talked about with these people who launch newsletters was like, the lost idea of a marketing campaign. He's like, you don't have to start a newsletter with 0 subscribers, then use Spark Loop to like get $1 every time your friend's newsletter gets a subscriber, and you just kind of like grind your way to 1,000 subscribers, like hoping one person refers it, and there's like this viral factor. It's like you could literally just like, put together an event where this is real effort, but that's kind of the point, right? These things take effort, but then there is a reward where you skip this period of like having the YouTube channel with 1 subscriber. And I understand you're probably watching this on a YouTube channel with 13. And so I'm still, wrestling with the implications of this idea. So if you will forgive me for, I don't know about the hypocrisy, but at least the irony, I recognize it, is let's say you find 10 other, and this is what Lewis talks about in the podcast. Let's say you find 10 other existing publishers, existing, credible, not credible, scratch that word, existing, established players who have newsletters, let's say that each have 10,000 subscribers each. Let's assume they're like real quality subscribers. It's like putting together an event where you are hosting a virtual summit or some course or some, you've put together a thing and you've invited all these other people to participate in that thing. And, you're calling it, we could come up with an industry, like let's say it's fitness, because fitness is like an easy one to think about. You're putting together this fitness industry newsletter, and you're going to put together a 3-day online event of like how to transform your mind, body, and soul, or how to transform your like diet, sleep, and workouts. That maybe makes more sense. And you're going to bring in 2 experts on each subject every day, and they're all going to promote this, and they're all going to speak for an hour about their topic. And you can access the whole virtual event for, I don't know, $27 or $300. I don't know. And, you're going to get the recordings. You've put together this whole info product. And then all these experts come to it. They all promote it to their lists. And, somehow in the process, everyone gets enrolled on your newsletter. It's like by orchestrating a proper campaign launch event. Or, another way is when I first moved to Arizona in 2022, I hosted, and let me check on this camera again. Camera's still good. When I first moved to Arizona in 2022, it's like you can try to meet, you can like make friends. You go to the gym, meet somebody, or go to fitness class, apartments have the coffee machine in the lobby, and you just like hang out there and use your laptop, and people walk by and you start conversation and maybe hit it. Or it's like host an event, like put together a party, like do something. Like I'm going to have all of the local Arizona entrepreneurs out for coffee at this place, or I'm going to host a cocktail party at this place, bring 3 friends. And like you've put in, like so little more effort marginally. And maybe there's like a dating metaphor that I should reflect on with this as well. But like the order of magnitude of result by like trying to make everything. So like, oh, I'm just going to, make it 1 friend a day for 100 days. And like, maybe I'm going to like some of them. And to be fair, that actually did work for me quite well as like a separate exercise. Was like, go talk to a stranger, go like shake someone's hand every day, like have enough of a conversation with a stranger every day to make it not weird to exchange names. That actually does work. And so like ground game is actually worthwhile. There's like a lot of ideas I'm throwing at you here, and hopefully some of them are useful to you. But the idea of like buying, a fraction of a share of Amazon, that wasn't a thing. It's like if you wanted to buy Amazon, you had to like, and this, maybe they split a few years ago, but I remember buying a share of Amazon a few years ago. It was like $3,000. It's like to do that, you had to have $3,000 that you were ready to make in one investment. And I think there was like something worthwhile in gating that experience. And not saying like everything should be gatekept, but like certain things should be. And like you need to earn the ability to do that thing. Like I think to some extent, the luxury apartments are another example of this. It's like when I was 22 or 23, and it's like I wasn't making that much money in the business. I was self-employed and we were very early days. And you can just live at these like resort style apartment complexes with like a sauna on site and barbells and pickleball courts. And it's like, we could afford that like right out of school. Because we're making like, not even like crazy money, but it's like to earn that country club lifestyle just feels like, now I'm like, now it's just like set a baseline for me. And like, that's, I don't know, some of these things have just gotten too easy. And I think that makes it, and obviously like, I got a scholarship and I worked through college and I didn't have to pay off debt. Like there's reasons I was able to afford that, but still like there are many other people. It's all these things are very accessible. And it's not to say like there's anything bad about like increasing the global quality of life. But launching your newsletter with 1 subscriber versus thinking through an actual launch campaign. So it's the same thing. It's like I'm doing cold email, just like grinding out cold email to try to get, a couple meetings a week from doing cold email, which is a good strategy. But it's like, if I just like wrote a book, that was like and I had this like sticky note thing on my sticky note, like note card on the fridge with some ideas as well. It's like, and this is what the book of the one thing, which is actually, a lot of people think the book's silly based on the title because it's like, you just do one thing, but I actually think the book's great and I've read it a couple times. What's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? And all the words in that question are very intentional and important. The one thing, so only one, that you can do, something you actually can do that make everything else easier and or unnecessary. And so, for example, if I had personally been operating a very authoritative newsletter and like had kept the Substack maintained the whole time, it's like, look, I have this newsletter. Here's all of these tremendous things that happen for me because of it. That would be so much more powerful. And let's say I had like 100,000 people reading it like I'm probably going to get a lot of leads from that, which like, do you want me to do the same thing I've done for myself for you? Like being that shining beacon of a case study is going to be very persuasive. What's the one thing I can do? Or like continuing to get more and more excellent case studies. We have quite a few good ones. They're on the website, but like continuing to do that would be like another very powerful thing. Like writing the book in your industry, like a real event that puts you on the map rather than just like hoping that a bunch of small activities accumulate to something greater than the sum of the parts, because sometimes they just don't. And I think that's really the point here. So slow dopamine, playing the piano versus playing iPhone games, reading books versus reading tweets, watching movies versus watching TikToks, right? It's just, the spectrum's very powerful. The third point here is, how do we minimize relearning? So I took a sales call this week, and we had a slow couple weeks of sales calls for a number of reasons, but they've picked back up. And so I was rusty when I got back on, and, get on the call, and like this was actually really valuable that it happened when I was at the hackathon and I call it a hackathon, just like me and my business partners working in the same room, whereas we normally work online. That's the hackathon, right? It's not like all-nighter. It's just like literally us being in the same room working feels like a hackathon. And so one of them kind of overheard my sales call, and he's like, oh, why did you do A, B, or C? And I'm like, that's a good point. And I used to know that, and I just forgot because it's been a long time since I have done a sales call. Then he goes, well, why don't you have like a document that you pull up before the sales call? Like, so for example, I was not super high energy on the sales call. I wasn't like, oh my God, we're the best thing in the world, and I can't wait to help you. I was just kind of like, I just had lunch, and then I just had this call, and I just like was not in the headspace of like Mr. Sales. I was a headspace of like Mr. To-do list, Mr. Brush my teeth. Like I was thinking about going to the gym. I just was not like 100% present on like the activity I'm doing right now. This is a business owner, I know for a fact, and this is what ends up being on the checklist, right? Like, and because like towards the end of the call, I was making like a really strong guarantee, because I was like, wait. Like I wasn't really trying to hard sell him. And then, because I wasn't in the headspace. And then as the call's ending, and we're kind of like, oh, and I had it back to back. That was another bad thing. I was back to back to another call. So like that I kind of had to end abruptly. But I was like, wait, there's like actually no possible way that we don't generate an incredible result for this guy. He's got a number of factors that lend his account to being one that we will work really well with. So for example, he's already running ads, so his list is growing, which means net new people are joining his audience on a weekly basis of like a sizable margin. He's already got a proven product. He has cold callers call abandoned carts. And so like he has salespeople who can call high intent customers. So for example, newsletters create good first party data where you can see who's like clicking your links or who's like clicking to read the articles but haven't bought. So we're creating first party intent data for someone who already has a team of phone reps, and just the quantity. Like you already had 70,000 subscribers. I was like, there's just no way, based on what we charge and how good we are, we don't make this guy more money. But on the phone, I was just not in that state of mind. And so anyway, Ethan from my team, it's like, why don't you have a pre-call with ritual where you pull up a document and like read the stuff of like, remember, like if you believe in the service, which I do, this is not like, you're not hard closing them. It's like, no, like I do not want to let you get off the phone right now, because if I do, I'm not going to be able to help you. And like remembering that, because sometimes we're like, oh, I don't want to be pushy, I don't want to sell, but it's like, no, like if what you're doing, you believe it's going to help this person and it's going to generate them more money, and you're like actually willing to make a true guarantee that you would back up and like give them their money back if they didn't make more money. Like I felt that way. Like I'm there. I just didn't like in the moment remember that because I was just so frantic. Go through it. So like since then I've made like a basic pre-call ritual that's just like kind of listing these basic things, reminding me of like, these are the types of assets that we have. These are the results. It's like we are, because if I haven't like closed a sale in a couple of weeks, it's like, oh, you just don't have that like that rhythm, versus like, no, like these are all the people we've gotten incredible results for. These are what make our most popular or most successful customers very successful, etc. So pre-call ritual. And then the most basic, this was a different call, so I'm kind of like merging stories here, was a call ended and they're like, yeah, I'll probably pay the deposit. And I was like, okay, great. And then, oh yeah, this was this call. This guy was like so hot and heavy on the phone. And like a big package, he's like, oh, we're going to need this, this, and this, and this. I'm so excited to get started. Just send me the payment link and we'll get things in motion. And it's just like, oh my God, I fell for the most beginner mistake in the book, which is like, yeah, let me just like, do one thing tonight and then I'll like take care of that tomorrow. I'm like, all right, we had a good rapport. I trust the guy. And it's just like, no, dude, like every call ends in one of three ways, which is, and Alex Hormozy calls this BAM fam, BAMFAM. Again, I'm just like taking good ideas and trying to remember them and repeating them for you. Every call ends in one of three ways: either a hard disqualification, we're absolutely not going to work with this guy ever, it's not worth following up with him, sayonara. Number two, let's get an additional time on the calendar. So for example, All right, I get it. You're not ready to move forward right now. You got to talk to your wife. I'm not able to call her, like whatever. Let's revisit tomorrow or put this time on the calendar. Make sure you've accepted the invite. Okay, great. Or number 3, collect the cash on the phone. It's like, hey man, in my experience, a lot of people say they're about to pay. Usually they're just politely telling me they want to get off the phone. Do you mind telling me, like, and I don't mean to be direct. It's just like, there's a lot of people where, anyway, it's like having some talk track for that. Always, always, always BAMFAM. BAMFAM. Book a meeting from a meeting. Collect the cash, book the next meeting, or say, look, like, it's not worth our time. And so anyway, that was a good deal by the wayside. I still think he might come around, but like now I've been sweating it for 2 weeks because I didn't just like take the money there and then, or put another time on the calendar, or get his phone number. Amateur. I'm an amateur. But like if I had a checklist, which I do now, I'll always remember. Now, how do you remind yourself to like open the checklist before the meetings? We're humans. There's a lot of work to do all the time. Okay, number 4 on this list, and it's kind of the same thing, is there's a lot of overlap between ideas 1 and 3, which is go back to square one and then just be pleasantly surprised if you can skip the steps quickly, right? I said on the first point, I'm going to scroll up here because I had the vocabulary kind of worded in a nice way, which is what advice have you been given that you know to be true, but you're ignoring? And the third point was like, how do we minimize relearning? And it's like, we don't need more advice. We just need to like apply the advice we've already been given. And what are the foundational axiomatic truths about your industry, about business strategy that like you just like have anxiety that you're ignoring? And so build that basic checklist. And so for sales, it's like very easy for me to be like, I've closed a lot of sales. Like, I don't need this checklist. It's like, dude, just go through the checklist quickly. It's like, if you're so good and you've covered all your bases, you'll just be reading like, got it, got it, got it, got it. And it's like, you know, pilots, airplanes, like everyone, they're very well known for, you know, using checklists. It's like, oh, I'm a good pilot. I'm confident. I've flown a lot of planes. I don't need this checklist. And like what I'm doing isn't that high stakes, but it is high stakes, right? It's like I have employees. Their livelihood depends on the sales and marketing department. I play a big role in the sales and marketing department. I cannot afford to make these amateur errors. So go back to square one. Business strategy, right? Who's your ideal customer? What are their problems? What are their goals? What are their desires? Like, do you have that clear archetype? How do you find them? Like, just like run the basics all the time and just be really happy to like find out that you still have your health in check. So it's like for me, like even with my health, it's like resting heart rate. And this is like a whole other lesson. I don't have my Apple Watch on, but like I just haven't been wearing my Apple Watch as much lately. And because of that, I stopped paying attention to my heart rate. And then now it's like, you know, lots of nicotine, which I haven't had in a while. Because I like put the Apple Watch on, I was like, oh my God, my resting heart rate's way worse than it used to be. Maybe the nicotine is, you know, honestly, like there was no observable negative effect of it other than that. But like that scared me because I was like, I used to be like in the 50s and now I'm in the 70s and like that's bad. So run the basics. Don't ever be too confident, arrogant. Yeah, those are two good words to like think. You know, you don't need to run the basics. It's like you should always be willing to go through, like, even in like Judaism, right? It's like 10 commandments. It's like, oh, like, oh, it's so elementary, but it's like you read that list and you're like, coveting. I've been coveting. You know, it's like that's a good soundbite. I'll be honest, it's really funny. If I thought of that in advance. Okay, anyway, we're getting towards the end of the video here. So go back to square one, be pleasantly surprised that you're right about the basics, or, you know, be humble enough to like be like, all right, well, we forgot about coveting. All right, number 5. Layering, and layering. Kind of same thing of like, I've had all these activities, sales and marketing, some of them are working, a lot of them aren't. And it's like, okay, what is working? What's most important? What's highest priority? Like, what is the one process we need to make sure is working all the time? And so anytime we stop doing outreach, that's bad. Anytime we stop having like a consistent cadence of just like going out to the market and starting conversations, that's bad. So number 1, like, because sometimes what happens is like, get a lot of referrals, get a lot of new business, then you stop maintaining outreach, and then you're like, where's all the business? Once like that like wave of chaos of like bringing on where's all the new business disappears. So it's like number 1 checklist every single day is outreach happening. Until as a business, we can like know with certain, not a day has gone by where we didn't do as much outreach as we have capacity to do with our systems and tools. Don't even worry about anything else till that box is checked. Okay, number 2, is our newsletter going out every week? Okay, great. Or like, you know, obviously I don't have to every day think about is it going out every week, but is it on track, right? So like on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays when I don't expect to get the draft from the team yet, don't really think about that. But for example, I like it is a reminder to think about it. I'm like, yes, like she's didn't disappear. So and she's here. So like she'll send me the draft by Wednesday evening so I can send it by Friday. Excellent. And then those are the 2 layers. And so now it's like, okay, until those two things, I have 100% confidence we're not going to make any mistakes on this. What's the next layer? I think it's in our CRM. Like any lead that comes our way, are we going to follow up with them very, very diligently? Are they added to our newsletter? Are they going to get communications from us? And are we going to personally have a reminder to follow up with them on a predictable cadence? So we're not just like losing deals because we just like forgot to follow up with people. Okay, great. Now that those were buttoned up in that way, let's think about the next layer to add. And ideally, right, if you have an assistant or you have like other people on your team, not only are these layers concrete, but are these layers as efficiently delegated as possible, so it takes as little of my time to manage these layers as possible, right? Buy back your time before you like hire to buy back your time before you hire to grow. So rather than saying, ask my assistant to start layers 4, 5, and 6, it's like, no, let's have her maintain layers 1, 2, and 3 so I can start to build layers 4, 5, and 6, train her on them, elevate, delegate, right? That's not a motto I came up with. Okay. And number 6 is, so add concrete layers before adding layers. I think in the past I've just like, well, we got to have Instagram. We got to have this. Well, this guy says this, and, got to go to events and got to do these things, and say, all right, have we nailed outreach? Have we nailed our newsletter? Have we nailed our CRM? What's next? And then once we're nailing that and it's working, right, there's like more, better, new is another Alex Hormozy framework. It's like, are we doing, is this layer maxed out and as good as possible and as efficient as possible and delegated? Okay, great. Now let's think about another layer versus just like putting in a lot of things that are all incomplete and broken at once and being surprised when like you've built nothing enduring. All right, number 6 is to plan around energy. It's like one of those constant relearnings. Hear it all the time. Like certain activities you just get really excited about. Like I was probably ready to go to bed. I started this video at like 7. I was ready to fall asleep. Now I'm like jazzed. So it's like recording content, talking, sharing ideas, existing in the world of ideas brings me a lot of energy. And so just like planning your day versus like at meetings, right? Like meetings, some meetings you're just like, oh man, back to back, context switching, etc. It's like sales calls. I like them quite a bit. So I should put them together again because it's like you got to build that momentum of like being in the groove. So ideally I should stack them on one day. Ideally I give them to Richard, and Richard's doing a great job with them. So planning around energy is just another good reminder. It's even like, do I want to go to the gym? Like I love going to the gym in the morning, or I don't like I like doing cardio in the morning because it puts me in a good mood throughout the day. So it's like, why would I get that endorphin rush and then use that just to go to bed versus like get an endorphin rush, put me in a good mood in the morning, delay my caffeine a little bit. So then my coffee buzz is being used for this, or it's like I can use my coffee to overcome the post-meal digestion. It's like thinking about your day based on the energy and the activities that tie them together is the last really short one. I don't know if I have like a philosophical point about it, but maybe the rest were like very flowery and verbose. And this final point was just tactical of like, how are you planning your day around your energy? And I think another parallel part of that is like planning the next day, the day before. Anytime I don't do that, I have a worse day. Anytime I do it, I have a tremendously better day. So just reminding to do that, and then just like maintaining this awareness of your energy levels helps you build a better plan. Because sometimes people plan the next day and be like, all right, I'm going to work for 17 hours in a row. And then, you get to that and then you're like, oh man, like I can't focus right now. And then you've kind of got this diminished sense of self-efficacy, which creates a diminished sense of self-esteem, and you're just like in a negative spiral. So like by accurately knowing your own capabilities and strengths and weaknesses, you build a plan, and then you're building momentum because you're like, look at me, I'm so great, I'm following my plan, because your plan's based on your energy cycle of like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to tell a friend that if I don't get out of bed by 6:15 a.m. and run a mile by 6:45, I owe you $300. And that's like the real one inflection point where like I can win or lose the day. It's like if I skip that, but as long as I do that, I know I'm going to be on track. And so I'm going to prevent myself from going off track by wagering financial money as opposed to, I don't know, literary money, financial money, to like for the hardest moment of the day, which is like getting out of bed and doing the thing on time. Once I'm outside, like literally once I'm outside, take 2 steps, I feel like I'm running, and then I'm going to come back and have that high, take a shower, eat breakfast, drink coffee, do the one hard task, and it's going to be okay. And then I'm coasting from there into my call. So it's like, that's practical. Saturday evenings, if you don't have plans, write down some bullet points. And yeah. All right. Thank you for watching to the end. If that's you, I always appreciate your feedback. Slow dopamine, long videos. Magnesium gives you excellent deep dreams. It's 7:56 p.m. here. And how I got on this train of thought was I was like, I have a bi-weekly mastermind with some friends, and I was like doing my write up, and I was just like, what are some things I learned in the past week? And I was just like starting to plan the next week, and all these activities were kind of messing together. And I was like, you know what? Let's make this video. So that is it. Lewis's Learnings. I don't even know if this is number 55 in terms of like the written editions. This is long form podcast version number 2. And if you've enjoyed, leave a subscribe or a note or a personal text to me or a comment, any of that stuff, and we'll be around. Thank you so much for watching. You don't need new ideas. You just need a frickin' journal and your phone to be out of reach. My phone's back there. I can't reach it. Phone's out of reach. I've got ScreenZen is this app where it's like if you you can't even open texts and you don't get when you turn on notifications from texts don't even appear up on your home screen. Separate yourself from the constant buzz of distraction. Ask yourself, what do I know I need to be doing? And that's what you need to be doing. There is a part in life like you maybe are actually stupid and you like should read books. And I will be at that stage soon, but not like immediately. Like for like my next goal, which is like say take the business from current revenue to 2x revenue. That's literally just like do the things. I can't tell you if that's your circumstances, but it's mine. Anyway, that's the video. Bye-bye.